Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who ruled and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson, and I'll be reading from an article on JerusalemPost.com titled, Israel Lobbies U.S. to Keep Russia's Military Presence in Syria, report says. Israel is lobbying the United States to keep Syria weak and decentralized, including by letting Russia keep its military bases there to counter Turkey's growing influence in the country, four sources familiar with the efforts said. And little does Israel know that by lobbying to keep Russia's military presence in Syria to counter Turkey's growing influence, they're just digging a deeper hole for themselves, because Russia and Turkey, who are going to be allies, are going to come against Israel and the United States of America during World War III. And it's all a part of biblical prophecy. This is Ezekiel chapter 38. I'm going to start at verse 2. Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog. This is one of the biblical names for Russia, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws. And that's the Most High putting those Russian Edomites, or so-called white people, back into that old confrontational Soviet Union spirit, which we can already see with their war in Ukraine and them helping with the BRICS, economic alternative to the Western financial system. And I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Russia's military might being further gathered down in, to the so-called Middle East, really Western Asia, for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, the main part of World War III in Joel chapter 3. Verse 5, Persia, which is the ancient name for Iran, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. And to some capacity, Russia has either a military or a economic, situation going on with these countries. Verse 6, Gomer, which is speaking of Turkey and all his bands, the house of Togarmah, the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, or your allies, and be thou a guard unto them. So as we can see, Persia or Iran, as well as Gomer or Turkey, are going to be allied unto Gog or Russia, and Russia is going to be a guard unto them. So, like I just said, with Israel lobbying to keep Russia's military presence in Syria to try to counter Turkey, hey, they're just helping facilitate the nations that are going to come against them during World War III. Verse 8, After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword and is gathered out of many people. And this is speaking of the Holy Land, the land of Israel, and those people over there right now, the 1948ers, who aren't the true children of the Most High. They're Amalekite Edomites who appointed the land into their possession, as it says in Ezekiel chapter 36, Verse 5, which they laid the groundwork with the Balfour Declaration after World War I, and then further cemented the deal with the help of the U.S. and the UN with the Israeli Declaration of Independence after World War II, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have always been waste. And the land right now, since the true children of Israel aren't over there, which the true children of Israel are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which is who they're known as today. They're not over there. So, the land isn't flourishing. They've got to bring supplies in like palm trees and other things to, make that place more easily habitable. But it is brought out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them, because those Amalekite Edomites, came out of, these different nations, mainly from Central and Eastern Europe into the Holy Land. And they have been dwelling safely due to, the military protection and, economic benefits they've been receiving from the United States of America. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Speaking of Gog, or Russia, as well as her allies, thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. Persia, Gomer. Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, it shall also come to pass that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought. To come against those 1948ers as well as the U.S. And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, and I will go to them that are at rest and that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls and having neither bars nor gates. And that's speaking about how these, Amalekite Edomites, these 1948ers, think they're untouchable due to, things like the Iron Dome missile defense system and these other anti-missile defense systems they have set up, as well as help from the United States of America, which, for decades, that has shown to be a protection unto them, hence why they've, dwelled safely. But, with the times we're coming into, you had Iran's 2 recent strikes, first time ever strikes on Israel, showing that they can touch them. So, those 1948ers aren't dwelling so safely anymore. And when Gog and that company that are assembled unto them, finally come against those 1948ers, they're truly not going to know. They're truly going to know that they are not safe out here. But let's get back to that article. And I'm going to jump around it a bit to get to the main points. Israel's big fear is that Turkey comes in and protects this new Syrian Islamist order, which then ends up being a base for Hamas and other Teists, said Aaron Lund, a fellow at U.S.-based think tank Century International. And that Syrian Islamist order they're speaking of is Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the Islamist faction that led to the campaign that toppled Assad. The U.S. State Department and National Security Council did not provide a response to questions for this story. The office of Israel's prime minister and the foreign ministries in Syria and Turkey did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, who leads the Islamist-rooted AK party, said last year that Islamic countries should form an alliance against what he called the throwing threat of expansionism from Israel. Speaking of that Z word, Zionism. Turkey has said, earlier this month, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar said Israel was concerned Turkey was supporting efforts by Iran, Persia, to rebuild Hezbollah, and that Islamist groups in Syria were creating another front against Israel. But what's very interesting is that, the Turkish president Tayyip Erdogan said last year that Islamic countries should form an alliance against the 1948ers. And while a lot of those Turks are Edomites themselves, those Islamic countries in Western Asia are, Arabic, so-called Arabic, or Ishmaelites, which, they're also going to form together to come against the 1948ers. This is 2nd Esdras in the Apocrypha, chapter 15. I'm going to start at verse 28. Behold, an horrible vision, and the appearance thereof from the east, Middle East, where the nations of the dragons of Arabia, those Islamic nations over there, shall come out with many chariots, their military might, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon the earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmanians, which are Elamites, which the Iranians or Persians are Elamites as well. So this is speaking of Iran. Raging in wrath shall go forth as the wild boars of the wood, and with great power shall they come and join battle with them. These Islamic Arabic nations joining up with Iran, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. And when you look at a map of the ancient Neo-Babylonian Empire, Israel, the land of Israel was encompassed into it. So that portion of the land of the Assyrians they're going to waste is what? The land of Israel with those 1948ers in it. So again, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said last year that Islamic countries should form an alliance against the 1948ers, the dragons of Arabia, joining with the Carmanians to waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. And as a foreign minister, Gideon Sa'ar said, Israel was concerned Turkey was supporting efforts by Iran to rebuild Hezbollah, and that Islamist groups in Syria were creating another front against the 1948ers. To contain Turkey, 1948er officials have sought to persuade U.S. officials that Russia should keep its Mediterranean naval base in Syria's Tartus province and its Haimim air base in Latakia province, the sources said. When Israeli officials presented Russia's continued presence in a positive light in a meeting with U.S. officials, some attendees were surprised, arguing that Turkey, a NATO member for now, would be a better guarantor of Israel's security. Two of the U.S. sources said. Israeli officials were adamant that that was not the case, the sources said. And they're wrong on both ends, because each nation that they're lobbying for to help keep the 1948ers safe in the region are going to ultimately come against them. They thinking that evil thought and coming up to the land with unwalled villages where they think they're dwelling safely. Read these last two paragraphs. The 1948ers lobbying to keep Syria weak points to a starkly different approach to other U.S. allied states in the region, notably Saudi Arabia, which said last month it was talking to Washington and Brussels to help lift Western sanctions. A source in Erdogan's AK party said Ankara hosted Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Tuesday, in part as a hedge against the uncertainty of the new U.S. policy in Syria and to balance any 1948er measures there, including with the U.S., that threaten Turkish interests. So that's it with this article. But again, this is just another example of biblical prophecy taking place right before our very eyes. The major players for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat making, moves to fulfill their roles in prophecy. And like I've been saying all throughout the video, what this is going to culminate into is all these nations coming against each other for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. This is Joel chapter 3, verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, the heathen Gentiles. Prepare war. World War III, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, war against Iran, nuclear war, because that's what it's going to end in. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. These nations getting on that military footing. Let the weak say, I am strong, which, we've seen with Iran, with those first ever strikes they did on Israel last year, which would have been unheard of, decades ago because of Israel's protection from the U.S. But Iran knows that when they finally make that move against them, they're going to have Gog be that guard unto them. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen. The United States of America, the 1948ers, Turkey, Russia, China, those Arabic nations, NATO, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. And those mighty ones are the death angels of the Most High, holding back this great destruction, waiting to get the go-ahead to release it, which is mainly going to happen after, the mark of the BEAST in Revelation 13, verses 16 to 18, which is the micro C-hip implant is mandatorily implemented. And with Elon Musk being a major player in Donald Trump's administration, and you know what he's all about, that Neuralink, which plays into that mark in the forehead. Hey, we're getting closer and closer to the rollout and mandatory implementation of the mark. Verse 12, let the heathen be wakened and come up to the Valley of Jehoshaphat, which in the Hebrew is Yahweh's Shaphat, or Yahweh's judgment. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about for afflicting the children of Israel, which you can read about in the first couple of chapters of this, the first couple of verses of this chapter. And at the head of that list of you heathens that came against the children of Israel, as pursuant to Psalms chapter 83, are you Edomites. And it mentions you Amalekite Edomites as well, who had a major hand in the transatlantic slave trade. Verse 13, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. And Apostle Tahar has termed 2025 to be the hopeful year of the deliverance of the elect of the nation of Israel and the destruction of Esau, Edom. And hey, with the way things have been going, and with the information we read in this article, we can see that the day of Yahweh is very near in the valley of decision. So that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.